Get out of here! You hit who? Hey, calm down, both of you. He started it.
The slap echoed through the diner like a gunshot, sharp enough to freeze every fork in midair and make time hesitate for a breath that felt far too long. The old man did not fall, though everyone expected him to. His body swayed, thin shoulders rolling back as if the years themselves had pushed against him, but he stayed upright, hands resting on the edge of the table, eyes calm in a way that did not match the heat spreading across his cheek. He was black, clearly elderly, his skin marked by age and weather, his posture slightly bent as if life had been heavy and long. He wore a faded jacket that had once been proud, with a small veteran's pin barely clinging to the fabric near the collar, dulled by time and neglect. It was early afternoon, the slow hour between lunch and dinner, when diners expected peace, not cruelty. The man who had slapped him stood tall and loud, filled with the kind of confidence that comes from never being told no. His clothes were clean, his watch expensive, his voice still hanging in the air even after the sound of the strike faded. He believed the room belonged to him. He believed the world worked in his favor. He believed the old man had earned what he got simply by existing in his way. No one spoke. A waitress near the counter went still, her hand shaking around a coffee pot. A young couple in a booth stared at their plates. An old cook in the back stopped flipping eggs. Silence wrapped the diner, thick and uncomfortable, heavy with fear and shame. This was how moments like this always went. Everyone waiting for someone else to act. Everyone hoping the problem would disappear if they stayed quiet. The elderly man slowly straightened. He did not raise his hands. He did not shout. He did not curse. He simply breathed, steady and deep, the way someone learns to breathe when panic can get people killed. His eyes carried something deeper than pain. They carried memory. They carried deserts and jungles, nights without sleep, the sound of boots and distant explosions. They carried a lifetime of being overlooked, dismissed, and underestimated. He had come into the diner for a simple reason. He came every Tuesday at the same time. He ordered the same meal, sat at the same table near the window, and left the same small tip folded neatly under his plate. It was his routine, one of the few comforts left to him. He liked watching the street outside, cars passing, people rushing through lives that no longer moved as fast as his once had. The diner reminded him of a time when things felt simple, when hard work still meant something, when a man's word carried weight. The bully had arrived late, already angry, already looking for something to take his frustration out on. Maybe his day had gone wrong. Maybe someone above him had made him feel small. People like him never took responsibility for their own storms. They passed them down to whoever looked weakest. The old man, sitting alone, fit the picture perfectly in his eyes. The reason for the slap barely mattered. It was something small, something stupid. A bumped chair, a slow movement, a request that felt like disrespect to someone who demanded obedience from the world. In his mind, he was teaching a lesson. In reality, he was exposing himself. The old man said nothing. He reached slowly into his jacket pocket and pulled out a neatly folded napkin, dabbing the corner of his mouth where a thin line of blood had appeared. His hands trembled slightly, not from fear, but from age. He had earned those shaking hands the hard way. They had once been steady under fire. The bully smirked, mistaking silence for weakness. He looked around the diner, soaking in the attention, enjoying the power. He had no idea that every second he stood there was tightening a knot that would soon snap his life in half. What he did not know was that the old man had raised a son alone after war took his wife too early. He did not know about the nights spent working 2 jobs, the sacrifices made quietly, the values taught without words. He did not know about the boy who grew up watching his father press his uniform carefully even when no one was watching, who learned that dignity did not come from money or volume, but from restraint. He did not know that boy had grown into a man who carried the weight of a nation's safety on his shoulders. The old man finished his meal slowly, as if nothing had happened. He paid his bill, left his usual tip, and stood with effort, using the table to support his knees. He nodded once to the waitress, a small gesture of reassurance, then walked toward the door. Each step was measured, controlled, full of quiet strength. The bully laughed as he passed, already bored, already searching for his next moment of dominance. Outside, the sun was bright, the world indifferent. The old man paused on the sidewalk, hand resting against the brick wall of the diner. His reflection stared back at him from the glass window, an old soldier with tired eyes and a red mark on his face. He did not feel anger the way he once might have. He felt something heavier. Disappointment. Not in the man who struck him, but in a society that kept letting men like that believe they were untouchable. He reached into his pocket again, this time pulling out a small phone. His fingers hovered for a moment before he typed a short message. He did not explain. He did not complain. He simply stated what happened and where. Then he slipped the phone back into his pocket and began the slow walk home. Inside the diner, the bully finished his food, loud and satisfied. He left without paying a tip, pushing past people as if they were furniture. He stepped outside, breathing in the same sun, convinced the moment was already forgotten. People like him always believed consequences were for others. Less than an hour later, the street outside the diner filled with black vehicles that did not belong to the neighborhood. Doors opened in perfect timing. Men and women stepped out with calm purpose, their movements sharp, controlled, professional. Badges caught the light. Radios crackled. The energy shifted instantly, like the air before a storm. Customers inside pressed their faces to the windows. The waitress felt her stomach drop. The cook wiped his hands on his apron, confused and uneasy. No one understood what was happening yet, but everyone felt it. This was not random. This was not small. The bully had returned, arguing with the cashier about a charge he claimed was wrong. His voice cut through the diner again, but this time it sounded thinner, less sure. When the door opened behind him and heavy footsteps entered, his words trailed off. He turned and saw uniforms that did not ask questions twice. He saw eyes trained to notice everything. He saw authority that did not need to shout. For the first time that day, he felt small. They asked for his name. They asked him to step aside. They asked him about an incident involving an elderly veteran. Their tone was calm, almost polite, which made it worse. Calm meant control. Calm meant certainty. The room watched as confidence drained from his face. He tried to laugh it off. He tried to explain. He tried to rewrite what everyone had seen. But lies collapse fast when truth stands tall and silent behind them. Outside, neighbors gathered. Phones came out. Whispers spread. Someone mentioned Homeland Security. Someone else mentioned assault. The words felt too big for a diner slap, too serious for a man who thought he was untouchable. Across town, the old man sat in his small living room, sunlight filtering through thin curtains. He had changed into comfortable clothes and was resting in his chair, ice pressed gently to his cheek. When the doorbell rang, he rose slowly, expecting maybe a neighbor. Instead, he found familiar faces, respectful and alert, standing straighter the moment they saw him. They addressed him properly. They listened. They documented. They apologized, not just for the incident, but for the world that had allowed it to happen so easily. One of them mentioned his son, careful and formal, acknowledging the connection without using it as leverage. The old man nodded, his expression steady. He did not ask for revenge. He did not demand punishment. He only asked that the truth be recorded and that the man learn something from the moment. He had seen enough destruction in his life. What he wanted now was accountability. Back at the diner, the bully was escorted out, his wrists restrained, his face pale. The crowd parted as he passed, no cheers, no insults, just silence. Silence can be heavier than words. Cameras caught everything. By evening, the footage was everywhere. The slap, the shock, the arrest. The headline spread fast, carrying a lesson sharper than any strike. The story of the elderly black veteran traveled far. People shared it not because of who his son was, but because of who he was. A man who had served a country that often forgot him. A man who responded to hate with restraint. A man whose quiet dignity exposed loud cruelty. The bully lost more than his freedom that day. He lost his job. He lost his reputation. He lost the illusion that power comes from intimidation. In court, surrounded by evidence and witnesses, he shrank into himself, no longer loud, no longer certain. Consequences have a way of stripping people down to who they really are. The old man returned to the diner weeks later. The staff greeted him with warmth, eyes softer, movements gentler. The table by the window waited for him, just as it always had. He sat, ordered his meal, and watched the street again. Life moved forward, as it always does, but something had shifted. People now looked at him differently. Not with pity, not with fear, with respect. Not because of his son's title, but because of his own quiet strength. Karmic justice does not always arrive with noise. Sometimes it walks in calmly, badge shining, truth in hand. Sometimes it reminds the world that the weakest-looking person in the room may carry the strongest story. And sometimes, the loudest bully learns too late that real power has nothing to do with force, and everything to do with honor.